Good morning, my dear friends. I admit my mistake because I think I've already announced the beginning of spring about 4 times, and again the temperature isn't quite what I would have imagined. And today's episode is one where I'd like to fulfill your requests. Every now and then you write to me asking me to do a garden tour around the garden. So today I wanted to give you a garden tour, so I invite you to join me as we walk around and you'll see what I have in this garden. I see that the robot has come over, so we have to watch out for it. It's working hard, and that's actually one of the things I'd like to tell you about. It's working hard and mowing the lawn, and it already looks pretty good. I'll tell you more about it in a moment. April, my friends, is really the time when trees are blooming in the gardens. Normally, I would say that many of these trees have already finished blooming, but this year they haven't yet. I'm standing next to my Magnolia. We've tried to identify it many times because I bought it as a seedling of a columnar Magnolia without a label. And there have already been many suggestions about what variety it is, but if you have one like this, let me know as well. Second year in a row. It managed to bloom and didn't get frostbitten. Although here the tips are slightly frostbitten higher up, but it's the second year in a row. Last year the frost came after it had finished blooming. I hope that this year the frost won't come after it finishes blooming, but this is one of those elements in my garden, one of those plants that bloom really well in April. And it always reminds me to remind you that you should sign up for the Wow Garden project if you want to show your garden. Remember, it doesn't have to be huge, it can be small, it just has to be something, it has to be yours. That's kind of the point, that we're talking about those gardens where the owners actually work. You can read all the information in the description for the Wow Garden project. The link is in the description of this video. We've already seen one tree that's blooming, so let's move on to the next ones. Some of them aren't blooming yet, even though it's their time, but let's go. I'll show them to you in a moment. Another plant that normally blooms in my garden in April is fragrant viburnum. Look, its flower clusters are already beautiful. They're almost ready to start blooming. Later it forms into little balls, and it blooms amazingly. So I recommend it, especially in places where you want the scent to spread. Unfortunately, before it starts blooming, it needs to grow here for a while, and before it blooms beautifully like that, it has to take root in the garden. So for me, it's the 5th season, it's grafted, and this year it's definitely going to be amazing. Another blooming spot in my garden, the columnar cherry variety Amanogawa. The brightest of all ornamental cherries we have in Polish gardens. Very pale pink, and it blooms in a beautiful columnar shape. It's still a little way from being fully in bloom, but this is a tree that really performs excellently and actually doesn't spread too much because it grows up to a maximum of about 2 meters wide, and it blooms beautifully in early spring. Speaking of color in the garden, Gookpal Scarlet, which put on an amazing pink display last year, really amazed everyone. This year it probably won't have too many flowers, but maybe at least it won't get hit by some disease. Because last year after it bloomed, it put out leaves and then various fungi attacked it right away, and it was basically impossible to control. But this year it looks pretty good. So write in the comments if you have this pink gook, and how's yours doing? Is it blooming, or is it taking a break from blooming this year? My robot mower, the 208 AVD from Navimo, has been working in the garden for a month now. And no matter if it's sunny or cloudy, it keeps working. It's set to run every 2 days, and it cuts the grass nicely. And I can already see quite significant results. Because the grass, even though it hasn't really started growing much yet since it's still cold, has already thickened. So the robot's work, aptly enough, isn't going to waste. The tulips in my garden this year are blooming just so-so. Actually, only in those flower beds around the house, which are the warmer, sunnier ones, the tulips are already blooming. Of course, it depends on the variety, but here Salmon Van Eyck seems to have has actually rebloomed really well. Because last year, actually, no bulbs were planted in the garden here, only in pots. So they're doing quite well. In a moment, Orlaia will appear here. In a moment, the first ornamental alliums will bloom, and I think it will get very colorful here. But I'm really looking forward to it. Maybe another week, maybe two. And in the May in the garden episode, I'll be able to show you the flower beds by the house in full bloom. My dear friends, I think I've mentioned several times that there will be changes to my sunny flower bed and to the area right next to the sunny bed. There, an even sunnier gravel bed will be created, but I'm here to tell you that I've already bought grapevines and there will be 2 varieties here. I hope that this year they'll already produce some fruit. I chose varieties that are resistant to our conditions, and I'll tell you which ones they are once they're planted. I just wanted to hint that they're already here. So I'm looking at my sunny flower bed. Those who follow me know that banana trees, Musa Basju, usually grow here. And I think this winter probably finished them off. Even though there was a lot of snow, I don't see any movement underground here. So far they haven't appeared at all, and it might come to the point where the banana plants just disappear from this bed. Some people like them in this bed and some don't. For now, I'm waiting and thinking about what to do if they don't show up here. If you have any suggestions, I encourage you to write them in the comments, because here they served as a background and a very strong focal point. So probably something will have to be planted here if they don't come back. One of the most spectacular climbers in gardens, and I'll stick to that, as I've been saying for several years now, is Akebia. Akebia is a plant that puts out leaves very quickly and will green up, for example, a fence, a trellis, or a pergola very fast, just like it does in my garden. Look, it has already put out really long shoots, even though other plants are still dormant. It even already has flowers, and there's that characteristic vanilla scent in these blooming flower clusters. It's a great climber, suitable for fences and pergolas, as I mentioned, and its stems naturally twine together, forming larger, thicker vines. It's truly an amazing climber because it adds color, fragrance, and later there are fruits that are also edible. I highly recommend it. Staying on the topic of climbers, because I have quite a few in my garden, I've come to 2 more. On one side, Clematis montana Frida. Absolutely my favorite clematis, which actually didn't bloom last year. It happened for the first time in several years, but this year I can see that the flowers are already here. So soon it will fill this space among the branches with beautiful small purple flowers. And on my other side is Wisteria, which, so to speak, I've given a bit of a warning. I wag my finger at her that if she doesn't bloom the way I want this year, then we'll simply say goodbye. So she's going to bloom fantastically. She's been pruned, I've already mentioned that, but she was pruned every year. This particular specimen didn't bloom that well, so now it's putting out lots of those beautiful long flowers. It's going to bloom beautifully here. If I don't manage to film an episode when it's blooming, check out my Instagram, because I'll definitely show it there. Now, my dear friends, a riddle. What does bonsai make you think of? Which country? And right away, write what the word geisha makes you think of. Maybe there will be some common denominators. If you thought of Japan or China, then you're on the right track. We're looking at an elm variety called geisha, which is a small leaved elm that looks very interesting, especially in early spring when it puts out these small light green shoots. The leaves are miniature, a bit serrated, kind of jagged. It looks great. It's called geisha. And look, you can shape it like a bonsai. So we have a common denominator here. elm geisha looking like a bonsai. That's exactly how it looks at my place. I'm mentioning this because very often it comes up in your questions and comments. What is that plant that looks like a bonsai but isn't a bonsai? Well, that's exactly what it is. We'll end our short tour of my garden here. But that's not the end, because in the next episode I'll show you the vegetable area, which for this time of year isn't very spectacular, but you'll find out more about that in the next episode, and I'll show you what I've already done there.